Hello and welcome back to the fourth installment of this permissions tutorial series. Here we're focusing on object level permissions using Django views or within Django views and templates. If you have missed the previous tutorials in this series, head over to the channel playlist and you're looking for Django permissions. If you have any problems with setting up this project, then just go ahead and have a look at the setup guides, but I will take you through a basic setup procedure. As I previously mentioned, this is part 4 of this permissions series. If you haven't seen the previous tutorials, it's well worth going through this step by step. In this tutorial, we go ahead and we're utilizing Django Guardian to apply object level permissions within views and also templates. And then we'll have a look at the end of this tutorial at automating permission assignment. This tutorial is not meant to be an in-depth tutorial. It is going to cover a very small amount of tools to give you some sort of concrete example of utilizing object level permissions within views, templates, and also just a small example of automating one part of many different aspects you might want to automate when assigning permissions to users. As I keep mentioning, number 5 and onwards, completely up to you. Please leave a comment in the video as to maybe some different areas you would like to see in this series. And I'll go ahead and try and develop those tutorials. There is a link in the video description that would take you to this project folder. Go ahead and download, open it up in Visual Studio Code, and then you'll notice that it already has a database set up. So everything's been set up. All that you'll need to do here is just create a virtual environment. And there's a video on how to do that, like I previously mentioned. And then just go ahead and install the requirements. So pip install requirements. And then once you've done that, the project should run absolutely fine. Everything should be set up. So let's just go ahead and try and run this, run server. Everything should be fine. To log into the admin, it's admin. The username is admin. The password is password. There are 4 users. Like I said, this is completely set up following on from the previous tutorial. So far, we've set up some permissions. If you go into our project here, we've set up some permissions in the views. So generally what we have here is that the user needs to be logged in. So we're using the login required decorator here. They need to be logged in to access the main resources in this project. That's the project listing page, project detail page, and then also creating a new project. And then in addition to that, we created a custom permission here. And we assigned that to the user group, the managers user group, so that only managers can add new projects. So the problem here is that I want my user, my project user, only to be able to access projects associated to them. I don't want my project user to be able to access all of the projects. So this is where we need to start to think about object level permissions. At the moment, we have model level permissions in that the user here can access all of the projects as long as they've logged in, as long as they have this permission, view project. Django Guardian is a tool that's going to allow us to start to apply object level permissions. So I can get a specific object in my model, in my table, and then I can apply permissions to that. And that will then further help me to restrict and to add privileges and permissions so that I can fine-tune the permissions and who has access to what resources in my application. So let's go ahead and pip install Django Guardian. So by all means, have a look. If you haven't come across this before, have a look at the PyPy or Google. So let's just go ahead and install that. So once that's done, we just need to go into our core and then settings. So we just need to add Guardian right here. Okay, and then third of all, at the bottom here, we just need to define the authentication backend for this. So you can see that I already have an authentication backend defined. That is the default backend. So I just need to add in the Guardian backend. Now this is just copy and paste from the Guardian setup guide. So that's the second option right there. Once Guardian is set up, it does require a set of models. So you will need to just migrate. So go ahead and migrate. You can see that's applied the Guardian models. So if we go back into open our database here. Now you can't do that. You need the extension, don't forget. SQLite extension to do what I've just done there. Right clicked. I can now go into the permissions. Oh, sorry. I can now have a look at my tables and you can see that we now have the Guardian tables for users and groups. So we can use this straight away. Now, we aren't going to use this programmatically. We are just trying to utilize the tools that are available to simplify this. So if we go back into the project app and then go into admin, at the moment, we've registered our project app in a very basic way. So what we need to do now is just wrap around this, the admin models. We need to wrap around this with the Django Guardian toolset. So let's go ahead and from Guardian admin, let's go ahead and import the guarded model admin. Okay, so we then need to create a new class. We'll call this project admin. Then we need to add the guarded mode admin. So basically this is just a wrap around the admin model. And then we'll just go ahead and pass that. And then we just need to pass that into here. Project admin. There we go. Okay, so this should give us instant access to now start to apply object level permissions. So here I'm logged in, I think as admin. No, I'm not, because the server's not turned on. So let's go ahead and add the server. Just run the server. Okay, so I'm logged in as admin here. Let's just do that again. Admin and then password. Right, so here we can go into the projects. Let's have a look at this new project. And now we have this option here called object permissions. So what we can do from here is we can now apply permissions. So let's do that. Right, so first of all, actually, let's create a new group. We'll perform this on group. So let's add a new group. Let's call this project 1. So this group is associated to project 1. Right, so we're going to make an assumption this is a big project and we've got lots of users associated to it. So nothing else we need here, just project 1. So now we have a new group called project 1. Now we're going to associate the member, the user project member here to project 1. So this project user is going to be part of project 1. So let's make him part of project 1 group right here. They're also a project user. So that's a permission that we set up in the previous tutorial. So now they're part of this project 1 group. So I press save. Right, so I could add lots of members to that project 1 and they're only associated to project 1. So this user here, I don't want them to be able to access any other project apart from the project that they're associated to or they're grouped in. So let's go back into our project here. Now this is project 1. Let's go to object permissions. So we want to apply this to a group. So this is a project 1 group. So I'm going to apply some permissions to project 1 group. And then they should be able to view the project. Okay, so press save. So all I've done here is I've added an object level permission. So this permission can view project is applied to this object only. So if I go back into my project, look at the object permissions, you can now see the group and what permissions that they have. And it's only can view project. All right, so now we've applied the permission. Let's go back in. Let's just log out and log back in as the user project. User password is the password. So user project member 1. So at the moment then, they can access new project. Now, that's not a very good example. So let's just go back in and let's add a new project. Let's call this new, otherwise this doesn't make sense. Okay, so we're going to assign this to the admin user for now. Required. Okay, so I've got 2 projects here. So I should be able to refresh. I can see 2 projects. Now, obviously, what I'm trying to do here is that user project member 1 is only associated to the group, which is associated to the new project 1. So I don't want them to be able to access new project 2. That's not the desired outcome here. I only want them to be able to access new project 1. Now, we've already set up the privileges for this object level permission so that user 1 has privileges only for permissions only to access or to view new project 1. So let's go back into our code now and set this up. So everything has now been set in terms of setting the permissions. So let's go back into our project here, go to the admin, go to the views, and you can see the current permissions that we have set. Now here we're focusing on here the project detail. What we want to now do is we want to filter out all the projects and only return the project that the user has permission for on an object level basis. So like we saw in the second tutorial in this series, we utilized from the Guardian toolkit get object for user. It was fairly complicated, but this is really simple. So from Guardian shortcuts, we're going to import the get object for user. Now notice that you can also do this for groups. We're just doing an example here for user. So get objects for user. Right, so with that in mind, let's go back now into the project listing here. So at the moment then, what's happening is I'm just grabbing all of the data from the project table and I'm just outputting it. So what this is going to provide us, get object for user from Guardian shortcuts here, this tool is going to provide the ability to filter out from the projects table all of the projects that have a particular permission set per user. So what we're going to say now then is that we're going to say get objects for user, and then we're going to specify the user. Now we can get the user via the request. So we're going to grab the user name from the request. So that's the user. And now we need to check the actual privilege. So we can do that by just naming it like we did previously. So they should have this privilege or this permission that's been set on the object level, view project. And then in addition to that, we can also add, I can't remember if that's exactly required, but we'll set up the class as well. So we're just defining the, in this case, we're just defining the model project. Right, so with that in place, let's now just make sure project, yep. Okay, so with that in place, ideally what's happening now is we're only returning, in this case, just one item. So let's just go back into our view here. So this is user project member 1. Remember, we've only set them up to have view permissions, view project on this project here. So if I refresh, you can see at the moment it's not been applied. So what I probably need to do is maybe just log in and log out again. Nope. So at the moment it doesn't work. So let's just have a think why it doesn't work. So there's a little bit of a conflict here. So what we've done is, we can add this back. What we've done here is we've tried to look for all the objects where the user is associated to view project. Now, this is the view project being the actual permission view project. So the problem is here, if we go back into groups, we can see that we have a project user. That project user is associated to can view project. And in addition to that, the user here, our user 1, is associated to that group and has that privilege. So the problem is here, because they have that privilege, we've essentially set it up so they can access all of the products if they have this view project permission. Sorry, I keep saying privilege, permission. So the conflict is that it's just going to grab all of the projects still. So if we were to, for example, remove them from the project user, so that the only permission they have or the only association they have now is to project 1. So if we just remove them from that, so this is in user project member 1. So we'll take away the project user which is associated to that permission we just mentioned, view project, then if we do that and then go back here and refresh, they now cannot access anything at all. So let's go back here, project listing. So the reason why that is because they don't now have that permission set. So we now need to deactivate that permission. So what's happening now is that because behind the scenes, this view project permission is associated to the group, that group is associated to the user that's associated to that group being project 1, then all that's going to happen now is we're just going to return project 1 and not project 2 as well. So it gets a little bit tricky. What might be useful is if you set up a new permission, so not using the same names. So if you go ahead and let's just configure, let's go and configure this. So let's go into our models. Let's create a new permission here. And it's just going to be the view permission again. So let's create a new, so view project, but we're going to call this Django Guardian _view project. So can view project, so object level permission can view project. So we're going to set up this new permission here. Let's go ahead and do that. And then I just need to quit the server. Let's just go ahead and migrate this. So we're going to need to make migrations and then migrate. So now we have a new permission set. You'll find that in the database. So DG view project. So let's go back into our views. Right, let's just add this back, project view project, but let's go ahead and now do the Django Guardian view project. So that's our new permission that we're going to set. So we still want to be able to add this permission required. So they should still have that permissions to view projects, but now we want to fine tune that using the object level permissions here. Right, so let's go back into here. Let's go back into our users. We don't have the server turned on, so I'll just turn that server back on. So if we go back into our users, so user member 1, so we do want them to be a project user. That means they have access to the projects, and project 1 is associated, that group is associated now to project 1, should be associated to nothing at all. Okay. Right, so let's go back in and see what we've got so far. So at the moment, we don't seem to be able to access. So let's go back into, I realize this is getting complicated. Let's go back into our project here. Now they need to be a project user, apologies. So this, this user project member needs to be part of the project user. I'm not too sure if I saved that. So remember, the project user has the permission here, project view project. So if we go back in now and refresh, you can see that we've still got issues. Okay, there we go. So we now have access to the projects, but this time notice that we can't see any projects, which is interesting. So the reason why that is, if we go back into our projects now, go to project 1, notice that our object level permission is based upon the can view product and not the new one. So we just need to edit this, get rid of that, and let's go for the object level permission can view project. And let's save that. So now the group has been set up for the OLP can view project. Obviously our user is associated to that group. So with that saved, let's go back and refresh, and there we go. And I do apologize. That could have been a little bit slicker in showing you that. But what we've done now is we've set up a model level permission and an object level permission. We've kind of doubled up on permissions. First of all, we have our model level permission saying that this user can now access all the projects. That's absolutely fine. And now we have a second level, an object level permission, where we then redefine from those models, from those objects in that model, what objects they can access. And at the moment, this user is part of project one. Project one group is associated to this project to view it. And there we have it. So again, I realize that a diagram or something would be really useful here, but let's just go through that step by step. So I'm just going to review this. So first of all, we have permissions required. Now, really, we needed to see the previous tutorial if you haven't already to understand this in a little bit more detail, but we set this permission up here. That allows users to view the products. That's what that permission is for. The second permission is to access permissions within that model. So the object level permissions. So we've made our own one up, DG, Django Guardian, view project, because there was conflict when we were using them at the same name here. Right, so now we've done that, let's go back in here. So we have a group here called project one, that's associated to project one. And then we also have a project user. So project user can view any project, sorry. And then the project one group is just here so that we can apply object level permissions. Right, so our user one, is associated to project one group and the project user group. Okay, so project user allows them to see the projects. Right, so then we've gone into our project, we've gone into our object here, we've applied an object level permission. Only people who have the can view project, or only people in this group, project one, that are associated to this project can access the project. There we go. So we've applied two permissions. We've filtered out the permissions here, the object level permissions, and now we have the ability to actually only to restrict users based upon individual projects. So this is obviously a made up scenario. So I'm assuming now that I've got lots of project members and I associate them to different groups. As and when they start working on a project, I then attach them to that particular group associated to that project. But in addition to that, what I want to do now is I want to automatically create a permission when a manager creates a new project. So when a manager creates a new project, I want to automatically apply a permission so that they can access that project. But I only want managers to be able to access projects that they've created. This takes us into the world of Django signals. So if you've not come across signals before, let's just simplify this. Basically, whenever we perform actions, maybe submit a form, add data to a database, obviously a message is sent around Django to perform that action, and we can kind of capture those actions or those signals, and then we can perform additional operations. So in this case, when the project manager creates a new project, what's going to happen obviously in the models is going to create a new project. So I want to capture that, and then I want to perform an additional operation. Obviously, the additional operation here is to set up the permission automatically so that the user, in this case the manager, can access that project. Okay, so let's go ahead and then from Django dispatch, let's import the receiver. Okay, and I think that's all I'm going to need here just for now. Now notice here, this is going to work because notice that my project here, every time I create a project, it's actually associated to a user. And you can see I brought the user model in here. So that's important because I'm going to basically utilize that in a second. You'll see why. So what we need to do now then is we need to use the decorator at receiver. Okay, and then we're saying post save. So when we save a post, and we can then say sender equals project. So we're associating this to the project class here, our project model. Oh, don't need that. Okay, so let's create our function. So let's call this set permissions or set permission. So we say sender instance. So grab the instance that we're currently working with, and then we can bring in the quags. Okay, so with this setup now, let's go ahead and assign a permission. So we're going to use assign perm. Okay, so assign perm isn't something we've made up. That is something from Django Guardian. So we're going to need to bring that in. So this is basically the way of creating a new permission. or assigning, sorry, a permission. So assign perm. Okay, so have a look at the Django Guardian documentation for this. So we're going to assign a permission. Really, really simple. What we're going to need to know is the actual permission we want to assign. So let's set up that. So this is the Django Guardian permission. DG view. This is the custom permission we set up earlier. So we want to assign them to this permission. So that needs to be in doubles. Okay, so second off, we need to know instance.user. So assign it to the user. Now, because we are using the user here, we're able to get the user object, right? So if we weren't, it makes it a little bit trickier to actually capture the user. So this is simply because we've set this model up so we can kind of access the user directly from this model. So we have that information readily available, and that makes this a whole lot easier to show you. And then we say the instance. Okay, so the instance is referring to the object that we're saving. So when we create a new project, that's the instance. So we're associating this privilege of permission to this user. Okay, so whenever we save a new project now, that should be set. So let me just double check this. Okay. Okay, so this is the signal, the post save signal. So we're going to need to bring that in. So from Django.db.models signals. Yeah, signals. Let's import the post save. There we go. Right. So in short, then every time we now save a new project, we're going to capture the signal, say, and we're associated to the project table. We're going to set the new permission. So we're going to use assign permission perm from Django Guardian to set this permission for this user. Now we get the, remember this, we get the user instance because we've got that data handy here. And then we assign it to this instance, this object that we're creating. So let's give this a go. Let's make sure that we're logged in as the right user. Okay, so we don't currently have access to any of the projects. Let's go to new project. Let's grab the name of a new project. So let's just call this a new project, project Django. Okay, so slug, new project, Django is obviously required, Django. Now, notice here that I've removed the need for the user. That just will automatically get created, associated to the user that's creating it. Press submit, and there we go. So we now have access to this project and this project only. So if we go back into the user, also the project here, let's go into our new project. Let's have a look at the object permissions, and you can see this has been assigned to the user, user project manager, and they have can view project permissions. So hopefully that's given you an introduction to permission or object level permissions, how we can utilize both model and object level permissions at the same time, and how we can create custom object level permissions, and then also creating automated permissions. And of course, this is really just a starting point. You'll probably have all different types of requirements for your project. No doubt you have lots of questions. And it's this point to start thinking about leaving comments in the video, thinking about other areas you want me to explore and different examples you want me to show. And this is why I've kept it nice and short, because I don't want to show too much, and just to make it easier for you to find that information if you want to utilize these tutorials. I think by breaking things down into smaller chunks, that potentially is going to be more helpful in this situation. So please, any suggestions now moving forward, let me know in the comments. As per normal, thank you very much for listening if you have got this far, and I hope to see you in the next tutorial.